כל ספרי המוסר הרבו לעסוק במידה.
Musar books have discussed this midah at length.
נכתבו ספרים רק
Books have been written about this midah.
איך מטפלים,
How to treat it,
איך נמנעים
how to avoid getting angry,
להיכנס אל תוך הכעס, וגם אם זה קורה,
and, if it happens, how to eliminate that problem. A person who can't overcome his anger is better off living in the desert, for no one should be made to suffer from this person. Good evening. Tonight's topic is a hot one. A sizzling topic. Anger. Anger stems from a person's inherent element of fire. And this means, in the Sefer Shari Kedusha, written by Rabbeinu Chaim Vital, as an introduction to the Arizal's Kabbalah books, Rabbeinu Chaim Vital says as follows: Man is comprised of four elements. They are his essence. Know that the bad midos in a person are rooted in the four levels of the essence of the neshama, and they are therefore divided into four types with the following particulars. Thus, it says on page 11, the element of fire, the element of air, the element of water, and the element of earth. Without getting into the particulars of all of them, briefly, the element of fire is the source of pride. The element of air is the source of speech. The element of water is the source of pleasure-seeking. The element of earth is the source of sadness. And just to be clear, I'm referring to the element, the spiritual essence. I'm not referring to the earth, the dust you see outside, or the fire and the candle, but to the spiritual force. Because all things in creation are made up of these four elements, four forces. Even the chemical elements are a composite of four forces. Oh, by the way, even modern physics refers to four elements, as we once explained at length. Fire rises. The element of fire gives man a sense of pride. If it's allowed to develop further, it's called rudeness, to be the lightest and highest of them all. What comes from all this? Derivative. This includes anger. For man becomes angry due to pride, when his wish isn't done. But had he been humble and known his shortcomings, he wouldn't be angry at all. We find then that the anger and pride are one, and they have derivatives. These are three, and include austerity, lust for authority, and hating another. These are derivatives. That is to say, the offspring of that basic element. That's a given. And last time, as you may recall, we read from the Rambam's Shmona Prakim, 8 chapters, that every man is born with a certain infrastructure. He's not a blank sheet. He doesn't start from scratch. The neshama that comes down is made up in a certain way. And the difference between two people stems from two reasons. A, from creation itself. And B, as it's explained in the Gaon of Vilna's Even Shlema, since all of us have been here before, but rather the so-called reincarnation. So the existing neshama, with its essence and shape and characteristics, is actually a continuation of the previous life. In other words, a person who ruined something returns here in the same position, and from there he must rise. The Rambam explains that every man has a different nature, but he can make amends, saying, this is the point, and that's simply the way I am. There's nothing to do. Just accept me. This is the exact opposite of the purpose of creation. The creation of the man, the descent of the neshama into the body, is for tikkun, for setting things right. This is the very basis of Judaism. Therefore, the Rambam writes in the Guide for the Perplexed that this is a fatalist's attitude, that a man can't correct his ways, his nature. It's heresy. He's a total heretic. Then there's no reward or punishment. If he's compelled, then what's the point of reward and punishment in this world or in the next? And if the Torah is based on reward and punishment, from Adam HaRishon, who was punished, and from Cain, who was punished, to the last of the Torah stories, until Moshe Rabbeinu, all this is because man has a choice. And I say all this because a man who's angry, very angry, even from childhood, shouldn't think that he can't make amends. He can. And not only can he, but he must. That's why he came into this world. And the Gra says that if a man wants to know the purpose of his soul and his tikkun here in this world, and many people ask me, it's just that they don't like the answer so much. The answer, says the Gra, what's most difficult for you to do, that's what you're here for. Now, this is similar to a man going to a hospital. He goes to be treated where it hurts him the most. When a man goes to a dentist, he goes to receive treatment for the tooth that hurts him the most, not for the tooth that doesn't. That is to say, because it's difficult for you, because you're in agony, just because you fail time and again, that is why you must overcome and to learn. Yes, of course. Without learning, there's no knowledge. Without learning, you can't make amends. You can't. Just like you can't know anything else without learning. First, you must learn. And here too, the Torah, and many people don't know this, its main purpose, as Rabbeinu Chaim Vital says in Shari Kedusha, the Torah, the mitzvos, the prayers, are meant to bring man to perfection. And this our sages have said. I've created desire to do evil, and I created the Torah as a seasoning to it. A seasoning in the past meant medicine, a remedy. Later on, Rabbeinu Chaim Vital writes, on page 39, that anger is a branch of pride, and is tantamount to it. And the sages have said that an angry man is possessed by calamities from hell. And it was said in Masechet Shabbat, page 105, if one tears his clothes and throws away his money or breaks dishes in anger, he should be considered an idol worshipper. In Maseches Nedorim, page 22, says, he who's angry is bereft of the divine presence. He forgets his learning, he increases stupidity, and his good deeds are fewer than his transgressions. It says in Mishlei and Proverbs, a man of temper is a man of crime. That's the anger that we're discussing. It's very severe, and it was compared to the worst thing, idol worship. What's worse than that? And indeed, we have to explain why. Why is it so? I mean, who of us has not been or is angry? And I'm sure that none of us has ever and none of us ever will be an idol worshiper. And every Jew is willing to die so as not to do so. But our sages have said that they're comparable. And furthermore, Rabbeinu Chaim Vital writes in the name of the Arizal that when a person commits any kind of sin, he injures a part of his soul. The soul has 613 parts. Tariag, 1. The part that's parallel to the sin. And he who's angry injures the entire soul. The whole thing. And it's as if he's dead, in a spiritual sense. And we shouldn't look at his face. It's like idol worship. That much. Anger is bad. Just like idol worship. De facto. This is not a joke. This is the truth. And therefore, all the Musar books have discussed it at length. And whole books have been written just about it. How to cure it, how to treat it, how to avoid getting into it. And if it happens, how to extricate oneself from this problem. In general, the whole picture, in order for a man to repair anything, for a man to want to free himself, he has to be convinced that it's a bad thing. Just yesterday, I had an argument with a known psychologist. She says, anger's good. She says, you should get angry and let it all out. That's what she said. And I know the argument. I know it. I'm familiar with these ideas. You know where this comes from? I'll tell you. Because psychologists themselves are angry. Just like any person. No one wants to be considered problematic. On the other hand, our sages of blessed memory were involved primarily with tikkun of themselves. Of themselves. Confession and abstinence leads to forgiveness. And all of the sages, from Avraham Avinu to our days, spent their entire lives attempting to better their ways. Not compromising, not covering up, not apologizing and saying, no, everyone has his own truth, his own nature, accept me as I am. But they spent every day looking for deficiencies in themselves. That's the difference. 2, like I told you, we truly don't possess the tools. Regular people do not have the tools. Because only the Maker knows the soul, for no one has seen it. Hence, the cure for anger, and there is one, it's located in these words of Musar, in the depth and the wisdom of the soul. And so much so that the Rambam wrote that a person who can't control his anger, better off living in the desert, so that no one else has to suffer because of him. Anyone who gets angry loses his wisdom, if he's wise, according to the sages. A prophet loses his powers. What else do you need? Our sages have said Moshe Rabbeinu, the master of prophets, 3 times it was said that he got angry. And those 3 times he forgot halachas. Because the Torah doesn't cover things up. What are the problems related to anger? First, we'll present them briefly. Like I told you, this is a topic for a series of lectures. Whole books written about it. I don't think I need to go into it deeply because we all know them. First problem is health. Go ask any doctor. how many diseases we get because of anger. Yeah, I know they'll tell you theories. Listen, he lets it out, he releases it, otherwise he'd get a heart attack, an anxiety attack. Heart problems, brain, the whole system, my friends. It ruins. It just ruins you. Anger causes man severe health problems. 2. Anger, according to the Gemara, he who is angry, he who has pride, is rejected even by his own family. He doesn't connect with his wife, his kids, with anybody. They steer clear. He's like a volcano, and they don't know when the lava will erupt. They just don't know. For it's dependent on many different variables. Depends on what happens on the roads, and what happens at work, and on his mood, the weather, the stock exchange, go figure. And the results are suffered by others. Whether it's a man or a woman, makes no difference. This person is a social nuisance. And of course this is reflected in the attitude towards him. 3. Essentially, this person harms his own place in society. In other words, anger lowers speech inhibitions. He can't control himself. In the best case, he can apologize later. The man from the woman, and the woman from the man, from the boss, from the worker, from the commander. Apologies, yeah, apologies. Very good. But the other one says, listen, I already know what you think of me. Apologies or not. With anger, secrets are released. Everything. A person is no longer in control on a strategic level. Therefore, even on the strategic level, a person has to stop himself. He has to learn to stop himself. We're not discussing, although it is important, things on a religious level. It's indeed a serious transgression, as I mentioned. We'll try to deal with it on the practical level. I'll explain. Shlomo HaMelech in Mishlei says as follows. Chapter 16, verse 32, that he who is slow to anger is better than the mighty ones, and he that rules his spirit is better than one who captures a city. The mighty one beats another and hits him, subdues him, you can even kill him. That's a mighty one. One who captures a city, surrounds it, takes it alive. He doesn't destroy it, he doesn't harm it, but he causes it to surrender. That's called capturing the city. What's the difference? The mighty one, he can vanquish a foe. So, what has he got? A dead foe. He fights a city, he uses bombs, napalm, A-bombs, everything will be destroyed. He wins, but it's a shame. He's left with nothing. He who captures the city leaves it intact. He has a city. He's got treasures. He didn't destroy or vanquish. He takes the spoils for the conqueror. That's the allegory. The Goyen explains as follows. In order to take a city, you have to use subterfuge, not just brute force, strategies. And through strategies, the weak may beat the mighty. David beat Goliath with a ruse, with cunning, not through a frontal attack. That way it is with man as well. When he's angry, justifiable anger. Someone did with this and that and the other thing. You hurt him. You harmed him. But he's slow to anger. What does this mean? Slow to anger means practicing restraint. You remember? If someone hurts you, keep still. Don't counter it. Don't yell. Don't fight. Don't return the favor. I'll remind you that I've said before, we're not dealing with righteousness or with Musar. I'm talking about strategy. Better is one who's slow to anger than the mighty one. A mighty one is hit and he returns the favor. Let's say he wins. But the victor gets hit. Know this. Even if one wins through a knockout, he too suffers cuts and bruises. If he fought a few rounds, all the more so. Yeah, even if you won, you also suffered. That's the mighty one. But if you're slow to anger, you know how to keep still, how to exercise restraint. You'll get him later, when he least expects it and won't see it coming. One who's slow to anger can vanquish even the mighty one. In a confrontation, he may be mightier than myself. But I found him sleeping, when he wasn't watching, when he wasn't listening, when he was sitting with his friends. Again, in any situation. In other words, we have to internalize and pay close attention that when you converse with your desires, with your yetzer hara, you have to use its terminology. Hey, listen, you're better off not doing this. You want to do it now? But no, it's not a good idea. Let's wait. What, I should keep quiet? No, you shouldn't. But let's wait for the right time. If you tell the yetzer hara, let's forget about it. What about my honor? What am I, a dog? Should let him walk all over me? No way. We'll keep the honor. But not just now. Another week, another month, we'll get him. You'll see, it'll be all right. We have to practice and practice against the yetzer hara, similar to a third party. Inside there's someone who's like another person. A person, better slow to anger. If you can hold it in, the anger, on a long rope, you'll beat the mightiest of them all, because he doesn't suspect that you intend to pay him back. That's stage one. But there's one even better, even stronger. Better is he who rules the spirit than one who captures the city. The one who rules the spirit succeeds in quieting, in subduing, in erasing the feelings of vengeance, of frustration, and he makes amends. He who rules the spirit is in control. The first one didn't control his spirit. He just delayed the reaction. The second one has the power to rule. As an example, you remember during the first Gulf War, when Prime Minister Yitzhak Shamir gritted, but it was all for show. He left the room and he smiled. See what we did? The Rambam says a man is allowed to act only if he's totally not angry. Theatrics. But if he can't be an actor, and he fears that he may indeed become angry, steer clear of it. It's the drug of death. Sometimes men, regardless of who they are, you try to do things the right way, it just doesn't work. These are people who are not used to civilized tone of voice. So if you decided that you're at the end of your rope and you can do it, there's a surgical operation, but certainly not for real. The anger is wrong. Anger rests in the laps of fools. It's total foolishness. And he who internalizes all this can, in later stages, stop. The Gemara says that Kohanim had a temper. Because, as you remember, we said that characteristics are genetic. So the Gemara tells of a town of Kohanim who used to divorce their wives. A Kohen can't remarry his wife because she's a divorcee. A regular guy can make amends and remarry her. So the sages therefore made it more difficult. They made a special get for Kohanim. takes many hours to make it. It's a big, big deal. So every man is forced to come up with ways to stop himself, to counter his problems. I'll give you another norm that's applicable only to believers. Everything we've discussed so far was psychological. Emunah can provide another remedy. But this is only for ma'aminim, for believers. True believers. And it goes as follows. David HaMelech, it says in the Torah, on the day of his coronation, on that sublime happy day, someone began cursing him in public. Shimi ben Gera. Not just a man, the head of the Sanhedrin. They wanted to arrest him and put him on trial. David HaMelech said, let him be. Hashem told him to curse. If a man is truly able to understand that even if someone has harmed him, even if someone takes hard, difficult measures against him, it's actually Hashem's bidding. It's not his own. So fighting with him or with her, it'll happen in a different way. You can't escape. If he can do this, a man with strong emunah, I say again, he's got to have an additional solution for that problem. Another solution that a regular person doesn't have. In other words, a man capable of, who wants to strengthen his emunah, that whatever someone did to him really came from Hashem, that even if he beats this one, another one will come. He'll counter one, only to face another. He can neutralize himself and go the other way. I won't go into this. I brought it only as an example. And because for this, man has to have a very, very strong emunah. That even regular religious and Haredi people lack. That's why you see everyone yelling and shouting and getting angry. It's a very, very high level. So there's no real use in going into it. I would advise whoever wants to start reading books dealing specifically with this issue. Here, for instance, is a rather easy, a rather simple book written about 750 years ago. And there's a whole chapter devoted to anger. He offers man various solutions for dealing with his anger towards others. There are ways to solve another's anger toward me. That's important too. In other words, try to understand why the other one was angry with you. Understanding doesn't mean you agree. Like we said, be smart. That's the reality. That's the reality. Try to identify the other's weak points and try to avoid them. Because if you step on a landmine, don't be surprised when it blows up. Your anger, you can try to defuse. Another man's anger, you can avoid, not to neutralize it. You can't do it. You can't fix another person. Most people try to neutralize the other one's anger. And I'll explain it to him. No, he won't succeed. Try not to step on his sore toe. Let's take a look. Why did it happen? And even if you're right, and even if they're right, so what? Be smart. And despite this, and your anger, try to slowly lower the level of your habitual response by means of constant repetition and dissecting and examining the results of your previous anger. Every mistake that anyone makes these days is subject to merciless scrutiny. Check out the consequences. Try to understand. Learn from them. Sit. Think it over. What'll it get me? What if I hadn't done this? And furthermore, make sure that it won't happen. I'll give you an example. Whenever you meet this man or this woman or this uncle or this salesperson, there's always an argument. So cross over to the other side of the street. What do I need to get into a fight? The wise person has eyes in his head. The wise person has eyes in his head. You see a dog on this side. Go over to that side. Once, twice. Okay, you're right, but they started it. What do you need it for, though? You're out of control. What can you do? So don't put your head in the lion's mouth. This is to say, take paper and a pencil, sit down, figure it out. Take a book, take a sefer, read it, not just skimming. Tell you what, this science called musar doesn't require high knowledge. We're all chachamim, we're all wise men. Just drill it in 10, 100, 1,000 times. It's called autosuggestion. Self-brainwashing, as it were. What's this resemble? How does a person strengthen a muscle? You take a spring, you press it 10, 100, 1,000 times, and you have a strong muscle. How does a person strengthen his brain? You take exercises in math or science or whatever, you do them 10, 100, 1,000 times, and he's got it. No chess master was ever born. Practice. Practice, practice. Take any specific thing, review it many times, and you ingrain it until gradually it starts producing internal changes. You're like drilling with a jackhammer. Little by little, the stone cracks, the stone breaks up, you're producing changes. The soul of a person can be changed, but it's not easy. Not quickly. It's tougher than steel. But you can even put holes in steel. There are drills that'll work, but they spin very, very fast, tens of thousands of revolutions per minute. But eventually, they'll punch a hole in solid steel. And someone who puts in the work, who really, really tries, with God's help, he will in the end succeed. I hope that these things that we spoke about today will produce results. If only for one person, then it was worthwhile. Thank you.